Dangerously Incompetent presents a review of the Centurion Mk I, Tier 8 British medium tank. Now, first thing you can notice is it's pretty big. It's pretty big even compared to heavy Tier 8s. And for a medium, it's absolutely massive with a very tall hull, which is not good news, given it's a medium. So it's longer than the S3, taller than the S3, especially in that hull. Now, that's bad news because mediums tend to have weak hull armour, and the Centurion is no exception. It's got weak armour even compared to other Tier 8 mediums, really. Okay, it's nice and sloped on the front, but it's still pretty thin at 76. When you look at the turret though, it gets a lot better. It's got a tough turret. 165 on the front, 112 on the sides. That's good news. Although it does have a very thin forehead. It's very thin on that, so if you're above this tank, shoot down into that bit. It's a definite weak spot. The other weak spot is this machine gun port, but it's tiny. No one's going to hit that unless they're point blank range and you're keeping your turret stationary, which you shouldn't do. You should wiggle it around. And of course, if we look at the gun depression, -10, that's very good. That's looking promising for crest fighting. If you consider the tank from the angle of sitting on the back end of a hill, the shots from your enemy, if you manage to display your hull, that's quite nicely sloped for ricochets. Then you've got your mantlet and your thick frontal armour, and then you've got this thin forehead, which is even more angled for even greater effectiveness of thickness and ricochets. So all in all, the armour layout is very nice for hill fighting, and that's what this tank excels at. If you want to see more details, see my armour review. Manoeuvrability wise, let's have a look at the top speed. Well, that's quite low. It is quite slow, but its engine power to weight ratio is quite high, so it accelerates and hill climbs quite nicely, and it gets up to that top speed quite happily. And with the British tanks handling on soft and medium ground, it doesn't slow down as much as the other tanks will do in swamps and so forth. Traverse speed 36, that's pretty decent for such a large vehicle, and 36 turret traverse speed is also good, so that makes it pretty agile. Slow top speed, but nice and manoeuvrable and good from standing start. Makes it a joy to drive, really. That's the engine power. Guns. I mentioned the depression, which is pretty good. Let's have a look at the guns. Now, the DPM for your top gun is actually on the low side for Tier 8 mediums. But on the positive side, it's a British gun. It's pretty accurate, it's pretty penetrating, and it fires quite fast. And even the snapshotting, it's fairly accurate. If you're sticking your nose out, well, sticking your turret, not your nose, you don't want to expose your hull, sticking your turret over the hill crest and snapshotting enemies who are close by, it's quite accurate enough to hit their weak spots, which is nice. Of course, to hit their weak spots at a long distance, you are going to have to aim. But it's a very easy gun to use in close quarters, although it doesn't have a big alpha. The second gun actually has a higher DPM if every shot penetrates. And its premium munition has great penetration, 239, so it's almost as much as the penetration of gold ammo on the Top Gun, and plenty more than the AP. So if you're cash rich, like running premium time, I'll give some serious consideration to actually just using this second gun, because your DPM is higher, and if you're willing to spend the gold, you've still got the penetration. Aim time's down, accuracy's down a bit, and the rate of fire, of course, is up. And while we're on this page, free XP. When you get this tank, you really want to free XP the second gun, the second turret, because that has the extra reinforcement on the front. Instead of just 127, which is okay, it goes up to 165, which is very nice indeed, and gets you lots of spangs and ricochets. You want that You want that armour, you want this second turret. And of course, to equip these, the top gun and the top turret, you're going to need the second tracks. So that's my recommendations. Tracks, turret, gun. That's what you want free XP wise. Or the first things, you really, really want those things bought before you even play this tank. But if you really have to grind your way through, well, that would be painful. But those are the first three things you want either way. That's the guns. Other soft stats. Hit points, yeah, that's alright. View range, that's pretty good. 400. Signal range, that's alright. Camouflage, it's not very not very sneaky because it's so big, obviously. Ha ha ha. Get it? Obviously. Terrain resistance is quite nice. It doesn't slow down as much as other tanks when you go into swamps and such. What do I run with this tank? Well, the normal large repair kit, large first aid kit, and I was going with tea and cake because I was trying to get an ace tanker. I'd done most of this tank about a year ago. I only needed to finish it off, but I haven't got an ace tanker to show you, and I was trying to get one, so that's why I was bunging those in. You can get by without it, and of course if you do it, you're not going to make that much credits, even if you do buy these at half price, 10,000 a shot, 10,000 credits a battle. It's quite expensive, but it can be worth it. Equipment wise, it can take a vertical stabilizer, so that is what you must put in first of all. If you do not run this tank with vertical stabilizers, then you deserve to be shot in the head and miss all your snapshots. Other options, I went for gun rammer and vents. You may prefer to use coated optics. If you haven't got 100% crew and you're not running with tea and cake, then coated optics is probably a good idea to get that view range up to 440. Other things you might want to put in: enhanced gun laying drive if you want to be a bit more snipey, and that's about that. So, to sum up: strengths, accurate snapshotting gun, really tough turret front, good gun depression. Weak point, good points: maneuverability. Bad points: big hull, weak hull, low DPM. How do I play this tank? Well, I go into the lumps and bumps and get your tank tipped backwards with your back end lower and crest fight. That's what this tank excels at, and that's what I did with it. And it's got maneuverability to get there and move around once you're in there. And my final verdict: this tank is a pleasure to play. Easy to drive around, easy to shoot stuff, and it's got a niche that's easily exploitable on most maps. So, all in all, it gets the Dangerously Incompetent thumbs up.